Ladies and gentlemen, before the start of deliberations on today's topic, let me have the privilege as the President of NISSMAT to introduce this international institution. Established in 1990, it has now become a think tank organization with association of more than 90 experts and scholars on various subjects who provide inputs to us. Our forum has conducted a number of webinars and interactive sessions which have received massive response. I am sure our session today would be of great interest to you all. Thank you.
On behalf of NISSMAT, I welcome you all to an important and a contemporary subject, that is the recent Peace Pact with the United National Front, Liberation Front of Manipur, its manifestation, and does it bring out any peace thereafter? UNLF, as better be called, came into being in 1964. The aim was to set up a sovereign sovereign and a socialist state in Manipur. They have been in constant clashes with the security forces in Manipur, and actually the problem came into being this year when there were ethnic violence between the Meiteis and the Kukis, which has created a lot of damage both to life and property. There are multifarious reasons in Manipur for this clashes which have taken place this year. We are not going to address them. We're only going to address the aspect related to the Peace Pact, which has been signed by the Government of India and UNLF on the 29th of November. For this, we have a very eminent speaker, Dr. Ajai Sahni. He is the executive director of the Institute of Conflict Management with the South Asian Terrorism Portal, and he is also the publisher and editor of the South Asian Intelligence Review. He is the project director of Impact. He has researched and written extensively on the issue related to conflict management, politics and development in South Asia, has participated in advisory projects undertaken by the various national and state governments. He has jointly edited a book with Mr. K.P. Gill, the famous police officer, on terrorism, and containment perspectives on the Indian internal security, the global threat of terror, that is to incorporate ideological, material, and political linkages. He has lectured extensively in various institutes and also a very famous figure on the electronic media. Dr. Sahni, I'll request you to take it on, please.
Thank you, General Mehta. It's a complex subject. As you mentioned, UNLF has been in existence since 1964. And over the past couple of decades, at least, it has been perhaps the most active and lethal group in Manipur. It accounts for, since 2000, more than 340 fatalities. So one could say that this is a very, very significant development under all circumstances. Then we need to start qualifying. Why at this juncture has this group joined the peace process, so to speak? And is this a complete engagement? Is it a good faith engagement? Or is it a tactical, opportunistic process which will provide this particular group some relief from security force pressure? UNLF has come under enormous pressure in its camps in Myanmar over the recent months. So that may be one provocation. Another another possibility is that given this is a Meitei group, its basic objectives are shall we say, promotion of the Meitei community. And given the situation in Manipur over the past 6 odd months, given the position of the Chief Minister Viren Singh, his complete, the degree to which he has been discredited fairly largely in the region, in the northeast region, certainly among the Kukis, he is now seen as purely a representative of Meitei interests in Manipur.
Yeah, that's right.
So perhaps to provide him with a certain kind of an achievement, so to speak, there is this initiation of this process. And UNLF, or now we must also understand that when we speak of UNLF, we are speaking here only of one faction of the UNLF.
One faction, one night or the 8, yes.
Yes. This is the Pambai faction. There is a second and a fairly prominent faction, fairly strong faction called the Koirang faction, which has completely rejected this entire process.
That's
and
right.
has in fact accused the Pambai faction of having betrayed the cause, having betrayed the issue of sovereignty of Manipur. Now, we must also understand that the Pambai faction, while entering this agreement, has made a claim that the Indian state has recognized the fact that Manipur was at one time a sovereign state, and that this would be the basis of taking this negotiation forward. And if this does not happen, and if the negotiations do not produce the results that they desire of it, they will return to the jungles. This is their language. They will return to the jungles. Understand also that they have not surrendered their weapons. Also, the number of people who have surrendered is very small, and among the people who have surrendered, actual cadre are believed to be a small fraction, perhaps a third or less of the total number of people who have surrendered. The rest,
they're still in the hills. Yeah, they're still in the hills.
Exactly. So is this, as I asked first, is this a good faith initiation of a process, or is it been undertaken for a variety of other reasons? Then again, they've spoken of ground rules. A ground rules monitoring committee is to be established. Now, what we know is that almost none of the groups that are in negotiations with the government in the Northeast is actually adhering. None of the groups that have any significant power are actually adhering to the ground rules.
Yes.
Despite monitoring committees. So that again becomes a problem and a possibility of a breakdown of this process. We must understand that this whole issue of sovereignty is actually a deal breaker. Whether it is with the ULFA, whether it is with the NSCN, IMN, or Khaplang. Khaplang, of course, is now out of talks.
Yes.
But NSCN, IMN is in talks. The various other Naga groups are in talks. But everywhere, the government of India seems to be fairly clear that sovereignty of India is not to be compromised. That whatever agreement is going to be there is going to be within the framework of the Indian Constitution. And this clearly implies that there could not have been any kind of a commitment or deal on sovereignty. Now, having said all this, I would also like to add that the context is very important. Not only the context of pressure on this group or desire of this group to release pressure on the chief minister, but rather also the context of the conflict in Manipur since early May this year, and the escalation, or rather the enormous quantum of ethnic conflict over there. Now, the government has made certain claims saying that violence is down, and so the situation is approaching normalcy. I would then have to ask, what is normalcy? Correct. You have two communities who have been completely cleansed, each from the other's territory.
That's right. Now, one more point I have. Please. This pact, the agreement which has been done, is the facts of the pact are not given anywhere, except for the fact that this will look into the aspirations of the mighties. If it so happens, what about the cookies?
Absolutely. That's where I was trying to go. You see, you have to look at the context of the state. Now you have this situation of declining violence, not no violence. Every few days there is an incident. You had an incident on, I think, December 4, in which some 13 cookies were killed. So we have to understand where this is standing. You have these two communities completely cleansed from each other's areas. You have the areas, in a sense, partitioned. The state has been partitioned into Kuki-dominated and Meitei-dominated areas. A buffer zone has been established. I have never seen this in any other theater of Indian insurgency. or armed or mass violence, anywhere where a buffer zone has been established between the two communities and is being policed
Yes.
by the security forces, the central forces, the army, and the local police. Now, given this kind of polarization, another factor, we are aware that nearly 6,000 weapons and hundreds of thousands of rounds
That's right.
have been looted from various armories, principally in the Meitei areas, but also in the Kuki areas. Less than about 15 or 100 of these weapons have been actually recovered or returned. More than 4,000 weapons and hundreds of thousands of rounds of ammunition of various calibers and types are still in the possession of the ethnic groupings.
Or the Koirang group in particular.
Yes, and the Meiteis in particular. I don't think we should, try to write roughshod over facts. Particularly the Meiteis. Understand also that the Coordination Committee of Meitei organizations and many of its constituents, this is a civil society organization, and many civil society groups among the Meiteis have exhorted people not to return their weapons.
Yes.
Whatever weapons they have come in possession of. So all this feeds into a situation where clearly violence as a credible option is being kept alive. And unless there is a very dramatic effort by the state to address the aspirations of these these groupings, no agreement is going to go anywhere. But how do you address the aspirations of groupings that start off with saying that sovereignty is our demand?
That's right. No, they have to work into the Constitution of India. That's right.
Exactly. And a second factor is what you mentioned, given the polarization of the communities, given the fact that the Kukis and the other tribals, including the Nagas, are in possession of the nearly 90% of the territorial area of the state, how do you come to any kind of an accommodation which would not completely marginalize and hence alienate and hence drive into violence the Kuki community? So I don't see this as a realistic process initiated in good faith by either side. I see pressure on the Kukis. I see a desire to prop up the Biren Singh government, and therefore a agreement. You may recall the NSC and IM framework agreement that was signed.
That's right.
I think 5 years ago or more. Again, the language was left completely wide open, and the agreement becomes a source of conflict.
Besides, there are other groups also, like the PLA, the Pre-Pact, the KCP. They all.
Yeah, you got 7 other groups in the Corcom itself, of which the UNLF and its factions are members, and all of them are outside this agreement. Now, the government has, of course, expressed the aspiration that the UNLF process will inspire the others to join the peace process. But unless this process, first of all, the UNLF process has not even brought together all the UNLF groupings. Secondly, there is also some kind of there is significant reporting that even within the Pambai faction, there are many who are not in agreement with the group. So I think this is mostly about optics. It's mostly about trying to say, look, we've done something towards a dramatic shift to peace in Manipur at a time when you have actually created a circumstance or conditions of a complete breakdown of the possibility of enduring peace. You may, with sheer presence of force, prevent current armed violence. But you have created conditions for enduring violence in the region. What shape that violence will take, whether it will continue in ethnic clashes when some kind of dilution of force occurs, or whether it will then translate into armed violence, or it will be a combination of these two, these are things that are uncertain. But you have created conditions for enduring violence in Manipur. And this agreement, given its nature, given its content or lack of content, given the fact that the UNLF itself is joining conditionally, saying, look, I mean, as it is signing the agreement, it says that, look, if this doesn't meet my expectations, I'm going back to the jungles. I'm not giving up my weapons. I'm committed to sovereignty of Manipur.
No, I go with you because, as you're saying, it's called discontent. Because this group which has gone in for a pact, the criminal cases against those people are taken off. The serious criminal cases. What about, will they give us similar dispensation to the other groups also? I wonder.
Look, let me tell you one thing. These peace agreements that have been done across the Northeast, in almost all cases, serious charges are not pursued. Understand the difference between dropping charges and not pursuing charges.
Yes.
So they keep a Damocles sword hanging over all these people's heads. And this is again a source of dissatisfaction, but it is also a source of transient relief that at least I'm not going to go to jail right now. And this is the condition of peace agreements across the Northeast.
Exactly.
That the leadership is always under some kind of a threat, and that threat can be executed at any point of time. Understand also, as I said before, that the ground rules are violated by all groups, including groups like the NSC and IM, which has been in, it is now 26 years since they've been in a dialogue. And that brings me to another factor.
Yeah.
Be sure, these negotiations just drag on and on and on without results. Now, as I see it, this is, in a sense, a strategy of the Indian state to essentially exhaust its adversaries.
I agree with you.
Now, this can work, and it does work, at least temporarily. But I would like to suggest that in the long run, for a state of the magnitude and complexity of India, this is not how you really deal with armed violence or dissent of any kind, unless you begin to address the fundamentals, the aspirations of the people. And that doesn't mean, oh, let's talk sovereignty. I don't believe the sovereignty is the aspiration of the people. I believe this is a posture adopted by some of these groups.
That's right.
Most of these groups. But unless you start talking seriously about development, about giving relief to the people, about meeting their aspirations for a prosperous modern life, I don't think the potential for violence will ever very significantly diminish, even if you have these transient moments of opportunistic agreements and deals and whatever.
Exactly.
Else.
Now, would it amount, like if the government meets the requirement of the pact that they have done with the UNLF, will it give an impetus to the other groups which are operating in that area to also see the effect, good effect, and come in for agreement? Do you visualize that?
I don't, because I don't see how the UNLF's expectations can be met. First of all, as I said, apart from these 2 or 3 very crude, generalizations, we don't know what is the language of the pact. We still don't know the language of the framework agreement with the NSC and IM.
Correct.
So all these things tell us that this is not going to result in any dramatic change on the ground or any meeting of aspirations on the ground in the foreseeable future. This is just a stopgap process that has been initiated, probably with the most generalized commitments on both sides. And it cannot progress because other parties to the conflict have not been taken into account. Again, you see the other processes. Look at Assam, look at Nagaland. Agreements are reached with one group, immediately another group becomes violent.
That's right.
Or other groups start making representations saying that, no, we need to be, incorporated. Then the principal group, the NSC and IM, turns around and says, no, we are the sole representatives.
Yes.
We don't want all these other people. You are opportunistically trying to undermine, our influence and the importance of the peace process with us. So these are not, do not look like, processes that are intended to reach a clearly envisioned end. They are meant to just stop violence for the moment by whoever is willing to stop violence.
That's right.
And then we'll see how it goes. We'll keep on talking and maybe something will come out of the talk.
One doubt which came into my mind was that, you see, the Manipur government had gone for a suppression of operations, the SOO, in March 20 earlier. But in March 23, when there was a sort of a violence between the cookies and the government, this got abrogated. I wonder if it is still in vogue. If it is not, then the cookies are as much violent as anyone else.
Absolutely. In any event, only two of the SO groups under SO were excluded, and the agreement with them was suspended. I think the Kuki Zomi army and one other group. So only two groups. Several other groups continue to be under the suspension of operations agreement. So that is ongoing. And this can be expected that if there is a perceived violation or a perceived intolerable violation, as I said, violations continue all the time. But if the government perceives an intolerable violation by a particular group at a particular stage, it is possible that they will suspend the process. But
That's right.
All these groups are again talking. The suspended groups are again talking to the government to withdraw the suspension. It is still under this suspension of operations has been suspended for 5 years and is still under suspension. So that is a fact. And this may also go one way or the other. The UNLF may withdraw from the agreement because the process is going nowhere, or the government may withdraw from the process because there are gross violations of the process by UNLF cadre.
Yes. Now, as you had brought out very clearly that this is a Meitei group. Meitei group is also operating in the valleys, whereas the Kuki groups have been pushed back onto the hills. Now, if it is so, this pact is only restricted to the valleys, a part of the valley, because one of the other group has not joined with this agreement. So I don't visualize much of change in the environment as what people perceive it to be.
No, because you see, apart from the fact that, as both of us are repeatedly emphasizing, UNLF is a small component of all these, Meitei rebel organizations. And then there is this whole mass of the Kuki side. And the Kukis have made it clear that they are now talking about self-rule. Of course, they're there within, a discourse which is within the constitution. They are not asking for sovereignty. They're not asking for breakaway.
Correct.
But the basic fact today is that the Meitei aspiration and Kuki aspiration are irreconcilable.
Correct.
And both sides are heavily armed. The Meiteis more than the Kukis. And there is no possibility, given the environment that the state itself has created over there, of a foreseeable negotiated resolution of the crisis that has been created since the early parts of this year, and which came to a head in May.
Yeah. Yes.
So if you do not have a context where these two major components of the population can sit at a negotiating table, civil society groups of these two groupings.
That is very important. Absolutely.
Not even civil society groups can sit together. So how do you expect armed groupings who always take a more extreme position, who always, seek a resolution that is far more unacceptable both to the state and to the adversarial ethnic group? How do you expect that to be resolved? So as I said before, and I keep on repeating, this is about nothing but optics. It's about nothing but creating a headline so that we can see, claim that something dramatic has been done, and it is the prelude to something even greater that will come. While the reality is that the atmosphere in the state has been vitiated to a point where no resolution of the basic issues of either segment of the population can be brought about in the foreseeable future. I don't see anything changing in Manipur for the next decade in a very, very short-term projection. The kind of violence we have seen, the brutality we have seen, and the cleansing of populations that we have seen.
Yes.
And at every opportunity where you see someone approaching the territory of the other population group you see killing him again. So this is not going to be resolved. If this cannot be resolved, then be assured that the insurgent groups are not suddenly going to, come to wisdom and say, oh, the Indian constitution is wonderful and we want to be part of it.
Exactly.
In fact, if anything, they are going to take more and more, parochial partisan positions, saying we are the true representatives, we are the ones who are fighting for Meitei rights or for Kuki rights on the other side. And so you will see no shortage of weapons.
That's right.
A lot of frustration among the people themselves, the larger mass of people, anger and frustration. And so the violent groupings, if anything, will get a fillip, irrespective of what the state can do in the foreseeable future. And the state, having created the problem, can do very little. I mean, I think to start with, they should get rid of the chief minister, who has essentially been from the very beginning part of the problem. But there seems to be no will to do that.
But in March, had he got collected all these people together, what you had civil society, and the problem would have been resolved in the month of March itself, but exacerbated thereafter.
You see, even if the problem could not have been resolved in the month of March itself, they are complex problems. It's not going to be very easy to, not impose a sense of threat on the Kuki and give the Meitei access to land, which I am completely in sympathy with the Meitei and, the distribution of land over there. But this is the given.
Yeah.
This is the given. Now, the minute you give me something, you take something away from the other. And that creates fear in the other. A process could have been initiated in the atmosphere that prevailed in early 2023.
Yes.
And that could have led to a possible and amicable resolution. I don't know when. These processes never, are solved in any easy time frame. But now be assured that neither side is going to give an inch. The Meitei wants everything, and the Kuki is not going to be willing to concede anything.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm with you on this. And I hope something tangible comes out of this agreement. But
hope is not a strategy. I think that has been said again and again by many people. Hope is not a strategy.
Yeah.
And I do not see evidence of a strategy. Even where the state, or rather from the center, we have seen the attempts to initiate a negotiating process between the Meitei and the Kuki sides after the ethnic violence. The processes that have been initiated have been so arbitrary, so non-consensual, and so imposed from the top that they have resulted in no movement forward. There is now a collapse of faith in the instrumentalities of the state in Manipur. And that, to restore that, is going to take enormous political sagacity. And this is a political issue. As far as the armed forces are concerned, they've done their job. As the government is boasting right now, violence has, been contained. But the army and the CRPF and the CPMFs cannot give you peace. They can give you the absence of violence.
Yes.
They can give you the absence of violence. That's their job, and that their job ends there. Their job is not to create conditions for political resolution. Yes,
exactly.
They create the foundation for political resolution. That all right, now people aren't killing each other, you can talk.
Yes.
But if you have created an environment such that no conversation or no rational conversation is possible, and if you are muddying the waters even more by coming into agreements with small subsections of the armed groupings with completely ambiguous, probably generalized and uncertain conditionalities,
yes,
you are in fact adding fuel to the fire. You are adding, as you have said already, that the other groupings are immediately going to be, are going to harden their positions. And this grouping is also on a very, very defensive ground. In the sense, he says that, look, I've been told all this. We are talking sovereignty.
Correct.
Now, if one statement comes out from the center saying that no, sovereignty is never on the table,
Correct.
this group has no face to continue with the process. So this is a process based on a multiplicity of false assumptions and falsehoods. And falsehoods are very, very useful tactically in certain circumstances, but they are not a good foundation for strategy.
Let's hope for the best.
Well, we keep hoping for the best, and as I said before, so
fingers crossed. And Dr. Sahni, it's a wonderful talk. I mean, I've learned a lot out of you. I gained a lot. And I just hope that we have peace in Manipur and other groups also see the effects of it, the positive effects of it, and join in. We want a peaceful East. Now, with the problem coming up in Myanmar, there are a large number of influx going to be from there. And they have a common ethnic, Cookies have a common ethnic affiliation from across the border.
As have the Meiteis, sir. Meiteis also have, tribal and familial connections across.
Yes, yes. So hopefully, thanks to you very much, and we hope that this agreement brings peace to the state. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Sir.
Pleasure speaking to you.